This is Straight Talk with Atlanta native Greg Fann, the Preacher Man, and his sidekick Shanan Jones. Frank discussions of issues affecting the ATL, Fulton County, the state of Georgia, the nation, and around the world. And now, here they are, live and in living color, the team of Jones and Fann, the Preacher Man.
Well, welcome again to another exciting edition of Straight Talk with yours truly, Greg Fann, the Preacher Man, and Shanan E. Jones. Hey, Shanan.
How you doing, Bishop?
Hey, Shanan, let me tell you something.
Yeah.
I got to tell you this. This is no joke today. This is serious conversation. Mm-hmm. When I seen that Afro sheen coming out of your hair, and the King Day celebration.
I told you it's TCB. TCB.
When I saw that, I said, the Afro sheen is a TCB. Okay. But
it hit just right, Bishop.
It hit just right. And that brand new suit too, you were looking good, boy. You were looking good. You represented really well. But you did really good at the King Day celebration.
Thank you, Bishop.
I always thought you were the pastor because you were doing everything.
Oh, no. The senator's the pastor.
Okay, you were doing the invocation, you did the panel, you did the introduction. I said, look at him.
Felt like being an assistant pastor.
It was. It's like, but you did a great job. And that panel discussion really was spot on, and you were really good, and I'm just really proud of you, and
humbled, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
How you ministered. I know the people at the Gathering Church, remember, were proud of you.
Thank you. They did. They said, Pastor, you did a wonderful job. You really represented us well. I said, well, thank you, church.
Thank you, church. Thank you, church.
And hanging out with you, man, teaching me how to get my rhythm and my time right. They said you got 2 minutes. I said, oh God, what would Fann do? What would Fann do? Just hit it and quit it. Hit it and quit it.
Yeah, well, that's what we do. We hit it and quit it.
I thought Bernice did a great job this year, as always, in terms of pulling together. And they had some challenges. The person that was to do the invocation, they called me the night before. Reverend Daltrey, something with the storm, she couldn't get out or got stuck, and so they needed to do that. And then the dean of King Chapel could not come, and because of whatever reason he couldn't, so they needed to put me on the panel. So it was a few things to shift. So I had to tell Reverend Dr. Bernice King. I said, she said, thank you. I know I threw it on you. I said, well, thank you very much. I said, I think I got one more thing to do. I might have to drive you home. They put us to work, but all is well.
That's not nothing you're not used to.
Being thrown in the fire.
That's one thing that you really are good at.
Praise God.
You do a lot of things representing not only your church, not only CBC, but your family. I know your father and your mother, they're really proud of what you've become over the years.
Thank you, sir.
You know what? And because they know what you could have became, but they know, and I know they're grateful.
That belt, with that belt of my father's, you couldn't, and that foot, you wasn't gonna be nothing but. He got two preachers. Two preachers out of us. Because we used to say, help me, Jesus. Help me, Jesus. Daddy gonna give me, Lord, help me. So, we perfected that thing. Help me, Jesus. And that's what we call to do. So it's like, it was years ago, Geraldo Rivera was interviewing Joe Jackson.
Yeah, right. I remember.
And they said, and Geraldo said to him, well, Michael says you beat him. And he looked at Geraldo and said, no, I didn't. He said he was afraid of you. You beat him, and you were vicious and this, that, and the other. He said, look, he had enough of it. Joe Jackson said, look, I didn't beat them kids, Geraldo. And he said, and if I beat them straight to the bank. Dad beat us straight to the pulpit. But we had it coming. We had it coming. We had it coming.
I don't know about your brother, but I'm sure you did.
Yeah, brother, we tested. You know how you test your father?
Yeah.
We gave him the final exam. You know what I mean?
And he made sure.
He gave us the final answer. But thank you so much for your compliments.
But it was great, and we really appreciate you for all
Appreciate
that you
you, sir.
do, all that you do for humanity, for mankind. And it's an honor to have you as a part of the program.
Honor to be here with you.
But today, Shanan, we're going to do a lot of the talking about what's going on today. But before we get into the program, we got to get Miss C. And Miss C going to come on with her Black History Fact.
Yeah.
Not a Black History Fact.
But her church and her announcements.
Straight Talk
Announcements.
News. Straight Talk News.
Yeah.
And I just want to tell Miss C, come on in, Miss C, with your Straight Talk News.
Hey, Miss C here. Hey, Bishop Greg. Hey, Pastor Shanan. How y'all doing today? Anyway, listen, I've got on my happy shirt. See, it says happy. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it says happy. And I got on my happy shirt in honor of the happy preacher who passed away recently. May he rest in peace. He will be missed. Okay, let's get to my 3-minute news blast or more, okay? New Grant Chapel AME Church at 1319 Holcomb Avenue in East Point invites you to join them for their King Day celebration interdenominational worship service, January 23rd from 1 to 2:30 p.m. The guest speaker will be our own Pastor Shanan Jones. He's president of the Concerned Black Clergy of Metro Atlanta, and he's also pastor of the Gathering Baptist Church. And listen, did y'all see Pastor Shanan on the King Day celebration? Wasn't he wonderful? Pastor Shanan, I love the dialogue you all did in the conversation you had with the panelists. It was really good. I didn't know you had it in you. I guess I should have, huh? But anyway, I didn't know I sat among greatness. I sit between two greats, Bishop Greg Fann, the preacher man, and Pastor Shanan Jones. Yay! Okay, anyway, let's move right along here. You ever thought that you were funny? Do you go around telling jokes like Pastor Fann, and does anybody laugh? Anyway, you're invited to the improv workshop to be held January through February. Is being held at the Southside Theater Guild at 20 West Campbellton Street in Fairburn, Georgia. You can contact the director, Amy, for more information. You have to send her an email, and that's Amy Beaucham. That's Amy, AMYBEAUCHAM1 at hotmail.com. All right? If you'd like to join the improv workshop that's going on January to February, contact Amy at Amy Beaucham, BEAUCHAM1. That's AMYBEAUCHAM1 at hotmail.com. First Iconium Baptist Church invites you to their virtual church service every Sunday at 10 a.m. and they have virtual Bible study on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. They're on Facebook Live and YouTube. And you can reach them by going to their website at firsticonium.org. Reverend Timothy McDonald III is pastor. All right. New Zion Baptist Church invites you to their online worship services every Sunday at 11 and Wednesdays at 12 noon, and that's via Facebook. And the pastor there is Jarius Dorsey. And you can go to facebook.com/New Zion Baptist to get to New Zion Baptist online worship service. Okay. St. John AME wants you to help them celebrate Missionary Day. That's Sunday, January 30th at 9:50 a.m. And their special guest will be Dr. Chantrice Holloman. She's the First Lady of New Grant Chapel AME. You can join them on Facebook Live or YouTube. And the pastor at St. John AME is Reverend Charles Ramsey. And you can reach St. John by going to their website at stjohnfairburn.com. That's stjohnfairburn.com. Okay, now listen, on your screen, there's a button that says subscribe. We'd love for you to punch that button and it'll show you subscribed, and we would just appreciate it so much. And also, there's another symbol there that says like with a thumbs up. Give us a thumbs up by liking us too, okay? And if you'd like for me to announce your event, please send it to me by email at straighttalknews1362@gmail.com. That's straighttalknews1362@gmail.com. And we're going to see you right back here next time for Straight Talk News with Miss C next week, okay?
Well, thank you, Miss C, with your church news and all the news, talking about the things that's going on in the community. If you want your information shared right here on Straight Talk News, all you have to do is send it to Straight Talk News 1362@gmail.com, and Miss C, she'll get it on. Miss C was bragging on you. She just talking about, oh, Shanan, you did good. Oh, Shanan, you did so good. Oh, Shanan, I didn't know you had it in you. That's what Miss C said. And then she said she was between two great men, and then she began to tear us down. But Miss C is something else, Miss C.
Where would we be without Miss C?
Where would we be
without Miss C?
But in the background, you see on the background, Shanan and I have something different today because we wanted to deal with this issue that this insurrection. Shanan and I have been talking about this insurrection and what happened January 6, 2021, when this whole country went on a tailspin. The whole country went on a tailspin. It wasn't enough for us to be dealing with COVID. It wasn't enough for us to be losing family members and people losing their homes. It wasn't enough. Mm-hmm. We had to face an insurrection. We had to face our government, our democracy being overthrown by people from within this country that were not happy with the results of the election. Mm-hmm. And let me just turn my phone off, Shanan, because my phone will say a person is detected.
Yes.
And so let me just turn this phone off. Thank you so very much.
Mm-hmm. And a person is being detected.
It's being detected.
The president wasn't able to hide that needed to come forth. So a person is being detected. So your phone is intelligent.
Thank you so very much.
That's why they call it a smartphone.
But as we look at what we've gone through with elections now, and we're going to be talking more about elections in a little bit, but this committee that was empowered or impaneled to look at what took place on January the 6th. Mm-hmm. And there have been all kind of barriers put up so that they could not get certain information that they were seeking. We had officers, Shanan, and I feel for them and their families, those who lost their lives and those who now are dealing with disabilities because they had people who were fellow Americans beating on them, putting mace in their face, spitting on them.
Law enforcement and soldiers
that
were in that cabal that were doing that.
And it's just, this country is so divided because of a lie in terms of election. When anybody lose, I ran for office, I lost. Mm-hmm. The first time I ran, I lost. I felt like, they took the election from me. I thought that, right? Mm-hmm. But I didn't do all that,
You mean you didn't have Miss C and all them go?
No, we didn't have an uprising.
Jumping uprise all over City Hall?
Al Gore lost. Al Gore lost.
Conceded.
He just conceded and said, okay, it's over. When people were trying to get him to do this, he said, no.
And there was really some cause to think that was a stolen election.
Absolutely. When the Bushes came out of the bush. Yeah. But that's another story. But this former president, this wannabe dictator, has fooled people to believe that the election was stolen. We're preachers. And that in the Bible talks about, in the book of Acts, the 13th chapter, it talks about when Paul and Barnabas went down to this town and this proconsul was there. And there was a man there, his name was Lysias or something, Lysias. And they called him Bar Jesus because he was anti-Jesus. And when Paul and Barnabas began to talk about Jesus, he didn't want the proconsul to hear anything about Jesus. He really denounced Paul and Barnabas because he wanted to be the man. So what we see here is, we see a man who wants to be the man, who has found some people who follow him as they did by Jesus, right? Follow him, and now they're all dealing with the big lie. If you read further over in Acts and you go down where the people said, we want you to stay here, Paul, and you and Silas to preach to us. I mean, you and Barnabas to preach to us more about this Jesus. And they did. But the leaders of the city came together with the women in that city, the church women in that city, and kicked Paul and Barnabas out over a lie. We are facing the same thing today, dealing with a lie. But you know what they did? They shook the dust off their feet and moved on to another town. So Mr. Trump did not want, he wanted executive privileges, that the information would not come out about what they did on that day with notes and all that kind of information. But the Supreme Court ruled that they could get the information. So we're gonna listen to that.
Let's hear it.
Let's hear it. He said, Shanan said, let's hear it. He said he wants to hear it. He wondered what's been in our background. That's what's been in our background.
News out of the Supreme Court, which denied former President Trump's request to block the release of White House documents.
Shanan, we're going to run it. Let me run this back. And we're going to hear it because Shanan wants to hear it. I want to hear it. You need to hear it. And give us just a second here because Shanan and I are doing something a little different today.
News out of the Supreme Court, which denied former President Trump's request to block the release of White House documents to the January 6th Select Committee under the claim of executive privilege. The panel already has begun receiving the long-awaited records, according to a committee statement. The decision was nearly unanimous, as Justice Clarence Thomas was the sole member voting in favor of blocking the release and publicly objecting to it. The brief order, written by Chief Justice John Roberts, upheld the appeals court decision that Trump would not be able to prevent the release of the documents, even if he were the current president, a determination based on precedent from the Watergate era that forced President Nixon to turn over those Oval Office tapes. The question of whether a former president can maintain privilege when the current one denies it was therefore not considered by the Supreme Court. Justice Brett Kavanaugh wrote separately in support of a former president's continued claim of privilege in some circumstances, but just said it does not apply here. A statement from the Select Committee reads this way, quote, "The Supreme Court's action tonight is a victory for the rule of law and American democracy. The records will not be released to the..."
They will not be released. The records will not be released. But look at the only Supreme Court judge, Shanan, and we're up there 3-4 times. Look at us, Shanan. We're up there 3-4 times. Ain't that something? Boy, all right. Now we're up there one time.
There we go. There we go.
So, Shanan, but the courts ruled, the Supreme Court ruled that the records could be, that they could be shown. So, what do you have to say about that? I mean, honestly, really just thinking about it. The Supreme Court is the last decision on any legal constitutional matter in this country, right? So many people felt that the Supreme Court was going to be the court of Donald Trump, right? With this action, what do you see?
Well, I see the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land. And if they have ruled, then they've ruled. Period.
Period. Period.
That's it.
So it is what it is.
It is what it is. What do you think?
Well, what I think is, I'm looking at justice. What we say, we want justice. We need justice. And that's what they really call justice. Justices, right? So I see people looking at, in this instance, more on past practices in terms of, as they talked about former President Nixon, how he had to turn over his tapes, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how things were discovered, and as what happened with Watergate, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm looking to see what will come out of these notes from his chief of staff and other members of his staff and the former president himself in terms of the plan, the strategies to talk about the election, to overthrow the election, long before the insurrection. Mm-hmm. Because and I know you've been seeing certain clips of news about mm-hmm. These different groups who have been working for over a year, with the plans of overthrowing this election.
Right.
So I think we're going to see a lot coming from those notes, those 700 pages, that the committee has desperately been trying to get. And I see the chief of staff, the former chief of staff, having to be compelled to come and testify before that committee.
I see him having to come before the committee. I also see Trump's children having to come before the committee, and perhaps Mr. Trump himself should come before the committee, because I don't think that any citizen is above the rule of law. I just don't.
Right.
And the lawlessness of the Trump administration run amok is what has the nation in this quagmire that we're in right now.
You call it the quagmire?
Quagmire.
It's a quagmire.
Yeah. It's a messed up situation, and that's my on camera. Right, that's my on camera
analysis of
that might be a word too big. Somebody else just might say we're in a bunch of you know what.
Yeah.
But we don't speak that way.
Yeah, right.
You know, but the fracture of this nation, and so, you know, the Dr. King said this. He said the arc of the moral universe is long, which means that we go through a lot. We're gonna have a lot of disappointments. We're gonna have some highs, and then right after those highs, we're gonna have some really low lows. But he said it bends towards justice, and I believe that. And I believe that this dispensation, this period that we're in this country right now, if this country is to make it, if it's to stand, then the rule of law is going to have to win out, and that law is going to have to be just laws and not unjust laws. And so Dad used to say this, Granddaddy and Grandmama used to say this too. Say, when I get you, I'm gonna get you for everything you did.
Oh yes, and
not just for the one. So some folk think that they are getting away with it, and there's become a political culture now that has arisen through this 45 administration that has really paralyzed the Republican Party. And we saw last night it's even paralyzing some some of our Democratic elected officials that are in largely Republican-based areas. We're seeing that kind of seep over, and it's beginning to erode. It's beginning to erode this nation, and it's the makings of an ideological civil war.
Can you hold that thought?
You gotta go to the restroom?
No. Can you hold that thought?
Yes, I can.
No. Can you hold that thought?
Yes, I can.
I want you to hold that thought because I want us to move into what's going on in terms of the last night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I want to move into that, but before we do that, we want to go into our Black History Fact with Brother James Brooms.
Right.
So we'll be back with more and more of Shanan E. Jones and his analysis of the paralysis, and he'll always give his analysis. And yours truly, Greg Fann, the Preacher Man. And the Preacher Man, right here on Straight Talk with Black History Facts with Brother James Brooms.
This is Gilbert Mason. Gilbert Mason was born October 7, 1928 in Jackson, Mississippi. Gilbert Mason received his primary education there, then went on to Tennessee State University, graduating in 1949 with his B.S. degree, and later Howard University, where he received his M.D. degree in 1954. Dr. Gilbert R. Mason moved to Biloxi, Mississippi in 1955, where he established his family medical practice. It was there that he met another black doctor, Felix Dunn of Gulfport, Mississippi, who was also the leader of the Gulfport branch of the NAACP. Compelled to ensure civil liberties for all, Dr. Mason was a drum major for freedom, who, on many occasions, was the first among a small band of conscientious, courageous citizens in Mississippi to peacefully agitate for equal access, equal economic justice, positive social change, as well as equal protection under the law. Dr. Mason, along with allies Aaron Henry, Fannie Lou Hamer, and Medgar Evers, joined forces to combat injustices in one of this nation's most notorious bastions for segregation, Mississippi. Dr. Mason helped organize Mississippi's very first nonviolent protest in Biloxi, known as the Wade-Ins. These protests were designed to desegregate Biloxi's 26-mile-long public beach, which had been created with public funding. Now, between the lunch counter sit-ins in Greensboro, North Carolina, and the famed Freedom Riders, the Wade-Ins of Biloxi, Mississippi, for the most part have gone unnoticed, even though they did serve as a litmus test for future segregation challenges. After the Wade-In, an NAACP branch was established in Biloxi, Mississippi, with Dr. Mason being chosen as its president. This position he held proudly for the next 34 years. Dr. Mason helped to organize voter registration drives. He helped to aid in eliminating the poll tax and literacy tests. Dr. Mason was also instrumental in the organizing of COFO, the Council of Federated Organizations. COFO's objective was to better coordinate all the civil rights groups that were launching their protests throughout Mississippi. After publishing his memoirs in 2000, Dr. Gilbert R. Mason Sr. died on July 8, 2006. He was 82 years old. Dr. Gilbert R. Mason Sr. They forget all about him, but we won't.
It's been Black History Facts with Brother James Broom right here on Straight Talk. Join us each and every Friday from 7 p.m. until 8 p.m. with yours truly, Greg Fann, the Preacher Man, and Shanan E. Jones. And do share these Black History Facts with your family and friend, and do tune in to Straight Talk. Won't you? It ain't nothing but straight talk.
All right. Well, I'm telling you, man. Last night.
Wait a minute. I want to say, whoo!
Yeah, man. I mean, it takes your breath away. I was looking at Missouri Senator Blunt talking about how John Lewis was his friend, and yet he votes no. I'm just wondering, up in Vermont and some of these other senators that were, Maine, that were, kind of centrist or moderate Republicans. None of them see the need to vote with us on this, to carve out this filibuster here, and to allow this vote to go forward. I'm not even talking about Jim Crow mansion and Jane Crow cinema. I'm not, I'm not talking about them. I think that it becomes a high crime for someone to vote to allow to stay in place the protections, the voting protections that were there, that gave us as a people, brown and black people, marginalized people, a right to be able to come to this table, the center table. We came to this country not on a Carnival cruise line, but in the holds of ships. We didn't plan a vacation to come here. We had no itinerary. We were snatched from Africa and brought to this country to be dehumanized, to become chattel property. We were beaten, we were raped, we were denied the rights of even an animal. We were sold, we were refused to be married, we couldn't be married legally. And in this country, they could do to us anything that they wanted to do to us. The only thing that a white man could be hung for was not raping us, not killing us, not selling us, but teaching us how to read. That was the only crime. If you helped us to begin to see the light in the midst of the darkness, if you educated us to be able to speak out and stand up and say, to articulate what the pain of our lives said, but we did not have the words and the articulation of those words. We didn't speak the language. When we learned the language, we could say, us is free. That there's something innate in us that tells us that we're not supposed to be in this condition, that we are human, and that something told us this was not right. And so we moved through the process of gaining our freedom. We moved through Jim and Jane Crow. We get a civil rights bill, we get a Voter Rights Act. We get the protections that could stop the kind of stuff that's going on now, the voter protection that was there, the pre-clearances that were there, the Justice Department. I mean, and now we've got a Congress that seemingly wants to put us back on the plantation.
But they say they don't. They say they don't. I mean,
but
that's what they say they don't.
People say a lot of things.
Yeah, I know, but they say they don't. But let me just
jump in.
Let me just interject something. They say they don't.
Jump in. Double Dutch. Come on in.
Double Dutch. And heard that in a while. But anyway, I was watching yesterday when Manchin was giving his speech, and I learned something from that speech. And there was another a senator who spoke. He was a Republican, Manchin, Democrat.
Is he?
Yeah. Well, let me just talk about ideology. Mm-hmm. Think about it. Mm-hmm. This is what Manchin said. Manchin said, he's been elected to office. Mm-hmm. He was in the State House. He became the Secretary of State, and then later the governor of the state. Mm-hmm. This other senator who was a Republican, and this is something as Manchin says, and there are many, many senators in here who are former governors of their state. End quote. Mm-hmm. I'm quoting them. Mm-hmm. Quote, end quote. Mm-hmm. The other senator got up, the Republican, very much like what you said after Wanaka gave in his speech, talking about how great a speech it was, and you understand how some people got there because of their ability to orate. And this is what he said. He said, I've been in government a long time. I've been elected. I was a Secretary of State of my state. And I held elections and handled elections for my state. And I was the governor of my state. Mm-hmm. You know what ran through my mind when I heard the two of them saying that?
Talmadge?
No. Our present governor, Brian Kemp. Mm-hmm. He took a play out of their book, Secretary of State, then become governor. And I want to do some study or investigation looking back at how many senators are in the Senate that were former governors of their state. That helps us to better understand their mindset in terms of state control.
States' rights.
State rights, right? So let's once we do that research, we'll come back with that
And bring it back.
Bring it back and talk about how many governors, former governors, are now senators in the U.S. Senate. And it brings us to a better understanding of how they think and why they think in the way they're thinking in terms of states' rights. Because their control is coming from their states, that they have ran elections in their states as Secretary of State. How many were Secretary of State before they became governors and then senators?
Yeah, and let's put Brian Kemp where he needs to be. So he was a Secretary of State,
Right,
who was running for governor,
right.
while managing an election. He did not recuse himself.
Amen.
Threw 300,000 people off the voter rolls, and then became governor.
But let's go even further by that. He was a state representative. So same pattern. I mean, we got to look at the pattern. State, House, U.S. Secretary of State, then governor, then U.S. Senator. That's the play. Because now we got the control, because we know how the state is run. We know what the state wants. So now we're going to push legislation on a federal level that's going to protect the state. So let's look at that and peel it back.
I'd love to do that research and see that. But the thing is with what's going on now, this is a threat to us as a people.
It is.
That's tantamount to other ethnic groups, that when you bring up certain things that take them back into the disenfranchisement that they fought to get out of, it becomes criminal. And what I'm seeing right now with this, and it might legally, that you can hide legally behind a lot of stuff, but this is criminal, what's happening. And even in the state of Georgia, because those pre-clearances are gone.
Right.
You already see what's happening in Fulton County.
Right.
You're already seeing the power that the legislature has to be able to. So this is an abuse of power, and an abuse of power to me is criminal.
Well, isn't that what we're talking about with the former president, an abuse of power?
Yeah, it is.
Abuse
Yeah,
of
it
power.
is. But I mean, and had it been Barack Obama, he'd be in jail.
Oh, Lord. They wouldn't be doing no
If
investigation.
Barack Obama had called a Democratic Secretary of State and said to them that he needed them to give him 11,780 votes, I think it was, or something like that, Barack Obama would be right now on trial. It'd be the trial of Barack Obama. And this protection that is going up to protect this Trumpian ideology that is spreading throughout our nation, and that's handicapping the Republican Party, moving over into certain, as we said earlier, this thing is leading to an ideological civil war. There was a report, and I'm going to find this and get it to you, Bishop. I want to share it with you.
Okay.
But there was a report of a person that studies, a scholar that studies civil wars.
Right.
And they said that it begins first when one party or one power group begins to suppress the rights and overreaches with their power, and it becomes an abuse of power. When that begins to happen, first an ideological civil war happens, and then once the ideological turns into the words, after the words, then you get into the physical. And we saw January the 6th, the physical. But we saw the words leading up to it. And that day, if you just go back and listen to what was said at the rally that the president attended. and then listen to what happened as he went back to the White House. And I think that in some of those records, they're going to show not only that his daughter was going in saying, stop, his son, his chief of staff, people were calling and saying, you got to stop this, that are silent today.
Right.
But I think he went in there with some popcorn and sat back and watched this movie.
Out of the office.
Yeah, and it became for him The Apprentice 2.0. It was he was watching something that he was producing. Mm-hmm. He produced it like he produced The Apprentice. He was watching a production, only it was not a production. It was a miscarriage of justice. It was not a production, what was happening there. But it was absolutely an affront to democracy in our country.
But if you don't care about democracy, you only care about yourself, this is what we get. So we're going to be talking more and more about this because there's more and more to say about this, and more is going to be coming out. So you stay tuned right here to Straight Talk with yours truly, Greg Fann, the Preacher Man, and Shanan E. Jones, as we give the analysis of the paralysis of what's really, really going on. But we're going to find out and share more information with you. Don't forget to like us right here on Straight Talk. Go to our channel, subscribe to our channel. But before we go, you'll see that like Miss C talked about, the thumbs up. Hey, like us. We thank you for watching Straight Talk.
One more announcement, because we got snowed out last week.
Oh yeah.
We got snowed out last week.
Cynthia talked about it, but
we
can talk about it again, because here he is. He's going to be the keynote speaker at the Grant Chapel AME Church this Sunday at 1 o'clock.
With our good friend, Pastor C.J. Holloman.
C.J. Holloman is the pastor. I call him the little preacher man. He's little than me.
So King Day Celebration International Worship Service.
Oh, and it's important that we do this. See, one of the things, Shanan, that bothers me, and I'm sure it bothers you and others who are people about justice, standing up for right. They have people to get up and proclaim, to talk about how great Dr. King was and what Dr. King
And already
did.
they've forgotten his words.
His words meant nothing to them, only when it's convenient for them to quote them. But it don't mean anything of substance to him, to them. Brothers and sisters, I want to say this to you. If you don't mean it, don't say it. Because what we see is your actions. We don't hear your words.
That's right.
We see your action. When you do not allow for people of color, of any color, and suppress them voting. And even though you say, no, this does not suppress people to vote. No, this don't do this. It don't do that. When you take people from what they're used to what they're not used to, and you make all of these changes, then you are causing, and you're disrupting things when you make all these changes, drastic changes, not just changes, but drastic changes at one time, and you expect for people to understand and comply, because people can't deal with changes. People are creatures of habit, because they're used to doing it this is the way we've been doing it, this is the way I understand it, so this is the way we're going to do it. So I wanted to say that, Shanan, because Dr. King, to talk about Dr. King, his dream, his legacy, but yet your actions don't say that you really believe what you're saying.
Yeah. We're going to say something about that at New Grant Chapel AME.
You want me talking about that?
We're going to say something about it.
So, hey, listen, it's going to be live. You can go out to New Grant Chapel's website and you can see the service. We're not asking people to come. If you come, it's going to be limited seating. But please check it out with yours truly, Shanan E. Jones.
If you come, make sure you had your shot, your booster, your other booster. Bring 3 or 4 masks and put them on. Amen.
Right. Amen. And amen.
Distance.
And distance. We're going to be seeing distance. Well, as always, we love you, and
Absolutely.
Subscribe to our channel, like us, call Bishop Lackey's church, call St. John, and if you want to get the vaccination, if you want to, they're there. If you don't want to, you don't have to. We're not saying you got to.
No,
We're just saying that it's there if you like to have a shot. Until next week, we want to let you know that you've been in tune to nothing but what?
Straight talk.
Want to be a guest on Straight Talk? Email Greg Fann at FANN922@comcast.net or call 404-308-0795. Join us again for another episode of Straight Talk with Shanan Jones and Greg Fann, the Preacher Man.